All of us know the difference between courage and cowardice, right? We know what that's supposed to look like out in the wild. What we just saw this week is a trend that's been developing over the last several months where the definitions of cowardice and courage have seen an inversion. Here's what I mean. When you think about courage, the people who are expected to be the most courageous are generally the ones that you would think have nothing to lose. And on the flip side, the people you would expect to be most cowardly are the ones that have a ton to lose. But that's not what we've been seeing over the last several months and even in the last week. What have we been seeing since the election has wrapped up? What we've seen are the most powerful people in the world roll over and show their bellies to a wannabe tyrant and dictator. And the perfect example are the cases of Musk, Zuckerberg, and Bezos. When we're talking about cowardice, what have we seen since the election wrapped up? We've seen billionaires, people who have really nothing to lose. They have all the resources in the world and really nothing to fear from anybody. These are the people that you would expect to be the most brave in society. And what have we seen them do? We've seen one after the other kneel, bend the knee to lick the feet and the boots of the orange tyrant, the felon in chief. And to a certain extent, none of us should be surprised that these billionaire parasites are doing whatever they can to continue being able to hoard their resources. But it's really still pretty amazing to watch people like Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg, Sam Altman, and a bunch of others all circling the wagons behind Donald Trump in the hope that he will throw them some crumbs and let them do what they want. This, above all else, should clarify the question for everybody on whether billionaires actually care about us. And this has serious implications on how we should be thinking about tax policy and economic policy going forward, because the idea, the whole rationale behind trickle-down economics is that if we lower taxes and lower regulation, the ultra wealthy are going to do really well, and then that's going to trickle down to us. And we've had a 40-year track record where that hasn't proven to be the case. In fact, we've seen over the last 40 years a $50 trillion wealth transfer from the bottom 90% to the top 1. And what's interesting is that even after the accumulation of all of that wealth, these billionaire parasites have proven to be even more cowardly than we had ever expected. So that's been an interesting contrast to look at. Now, on the other side, what have we seen from people who have the most to lose? What we saw this week was a Bishop Marianne Edgar Budd at a service directly call out the president. And in the process of calling out the president, he completely got put on the spot. And just like you expect narcissists to do, he had a look of disgust on his face because he was on the spot and being called out. That is the definition of truth, speaking truth to power. This clip gives you a great example of what courage looks like. Check this out, and I'll be right back.
In our country, we're scared now. Let me make one final plea, Mr. President. Millions have put their trust in you. And as you told the nation yesterday, you have felt the providential hand of a loving God. In the name of our God, I ask you to have mercy upon the people in our country who are scared now. There are gay, lesbian, and transgender children in Democratic, Republican, and independent families. Some who fear for their lives. And the people who pick our crops, clean our office buildings, who labor in poultry farms and meatpacking plants, who wash the dishes after we eat in restaurants and work the night shifts in hospitals.
So what did we see there? We saw a bishop who legitimately has a lot to lose. She could lose her congregation, she could lose respect in her community, and you certainly know that she's at risk for potentially losing her life, because we know that MAGA is prone to violence. And we've seen that as evidenced by them storming the Capitol, the increase in hate crimes under the Trump administration, typically perpetrated by the MAGA base and MAGA allies like the Proud Boys, Patriot Front, and Oath Keepers. So she is at extreme risk, and she still had the courage to speak truth to power. And to carry on the example of the difference between courage and cowardice, we had yet another example in front of us over the last week. And that was the example given to us by Elon Musk. What Elon Musk did at the inauguration shouldn't have surprised anybody that was paying attention. After all, this is somebody that is a product of apartheid era South Africa. And he comes from a long line of people who have been Nazi sympathizers, apartheid lovers, and combinations of both. And his recent political dabbling has shown him willing and eagerly supporting every far right white nationalist group around the world and doing what he can to bring them to power. He wants to take the South African model, the apartheid era South African model, and bring that global. So what do we see him do in the inauguration? He gave a salute that we absolutely know the historical context for. Every Italian and German in the World War II era was giving this salute to their dear leader. And Elon did that twice. And in a stunning display of cowardice, how did the press respond? How did Republicans respond? Well, you had some of the members of the mainstream media crank out headlines like this. MSNBC noted that Elon Musk was condemned for his gesture in the inauguration. The New York Times reported with this as the headline: Elon Musk ignites online speculation about the meaning of his hand gesture. And that's just a couple of examples of the response from the American press. The foreign press has been kind of a mixed bag. You have the BBC referencing the hand gesture as well, instead of explicitly calling out what it is, which was a Nazi salute. The one difference in all of this is The Guardian. The Guardian has consistently been calling out Trump's antics and his inner circle's antics for what they are, throwbacks to Nazi era Germany. And what's interesting about this is that you are seeing not only print and online media bending the knee and demonstrating cowardice, you're seeing online platforms do the same thing. We already knew that Elon Musk's disinformation swamp, Twitter, was notorious for doing this kind of gaslighting. They would amplify far right wing and Nazi voices while diminishing anything that was left of center or independent. And Facebook also has followed suit by taking the Twitter model and bringing it to their platform. And with TikTok CEO bending the knee in order to get a 90-day reprieve, what have we seen on that platform? It's been another instance of executive and billionaire cowardice. So what's the lesson that we can learn from observing all of this? When we look at what happened, we're seeing cowardice all around us. And the one example of courage came from who? A lowly reverend. And that shines a light to the path that we must be on going forward. It's going to take regular people standing out and spitting in the face of power when they try to exert their influence and stomp down the most vulnerable among us. That is all of our collective responsibility. We cannot hide in the shadows, because hiding in the shadows gives these Nazis and Nazi sympathizers power. And that is the worst thing that we can do. If we want to navigate this with a hope of success, we are at the time where everyone needs to be standing up, being seen, speaking out, shouting back, and fighting back. That's the path ahead.